Hey guys, Justin here with Roots and Ruins. Today we're taking a dive deep into the eerie history of a ghost town that has spent the better part of half a century underwater, and that's Monument City here in northern Indiana. Monument City was a small but thriving community up until the late 1960s when ultimately it had to be abandoned and flooded to make way for the Salamonie Reservoir project. Ever since then, it only emerges during the winter months when the water levels are low or during the rare drought in the summer months. So join me today and we'll go check out this forgotten place and we'll see what we find. I hope you guys enjoy the video. All right, guys, right now we're heading down the road that used to lead down into Monument City. Years ago, I think around 2014, there was a drought during the summer, and a lot of people were coming down here and checking this place out. And used to, you could just drive right down here, but DNR noticed that people were damaging things and causing problems, so they put a gate up to stop people from driving down here. So if you are going to be checking this out yourself, be prepared to do some walking. It's about a half mile one way just to get down to the lake shore where the town begins, so just keep that in mind. Brush is getting thicker. There's not a whole lot left of the original road down here, but still something that leads into town, so that's still a cool remnant to check out. Right, we're approaching the edge of the shore here. We should be starting to head down into the old town here. Just to give you an idea, right here is the road and leads all the way up there. You get an idea. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we're down on the lake bed now. As you can see, the water level is pretty low. There's three things I want to check out here, and a couple of them I have old photos of, and that's the general store, the old high school or the Polk Township school, and the cemetery and church area. There's obviously going to be a bunch of foundations around here, but those are the ones that seem to have the most information on them, so we're going to try to find the remains of them. Right now we're walking on the old road to what is roughly the center of town, and then from there we'll try to find our way to the general store. Right here you see the road come up here, and then here's the intersection, one of the main intersections in town. There's not a whole lot left of it, but you can still see the asphalt and all that, so it's definitely a road at one point. Here's an interesting tidbit here. That's a telephone pole, so they just cut them off and just left them in the ground there. Here's some other pieces there. You can see the metal here. That's for the guidelines of that telephone pole. Right here is the foundation to a house, I believe. And what's pretty cool is you have just the sidewalk that once led up to someone's house. It's kind of an eerie feeling because, that was used every day, and now, it rests on the bottom of a lake bed. What once stood behind me was Albert and Betsy's General Store. It was once a community focal point in town where kids would come after school and buy candy, and old men would gather around the potbelly stove and swap stories. Today, there's not a whole lot left of it except parts of the foundation, so we'll get a closer look at that. Pieces of sidewalk there, along with the roots of an old tree that you'll see in a lot of photos of this old general store. Right here is the only real piece of foundation left, and you can see here how looks like there was some type of support in the concrete there. Well, as well as that, looks like a outside corner. Other than that, it's just a lot of bricks and rock that's left over. Not a whole lot left. All right, we're going to be walking and trying to find the old school now. From what I've heard, it's pretty easy to find, but we're going to be passing by a handful of other foundations and remnants of this town, so we'll make sure to check those out on our way. Right here's another crossroads in town that's pretty prominent on the aerial photos. From here, that direction, there was a bridge across the river at one point, and you can see the trees and all that, but the abutments are no longer there that support the bridge. But you can kind of get an idea, just from seeing the remnants of the road and the tree stumps, of what this probably would have looked like. You can see the bulldozer tracks from when they had to raise this town. I think it's worth mentioning that the people that lived here didn't necessarily go by choice. The area had, over the past 100 years of this area before they built the dam, experienced a lot of flooding, especially downstream. And when the Army Corps came in, they built this reservoir and multiple other ones in order to try to reduce those incidents of flooding. But it was definitely a situation where you could choose to leave and be paid, or the land be taken from you. And a lot of people really had no choice, so they took the money they could. Some people even moved their houses and had to leave. And it's an unfortunate situation you got to deal with when you're put in that situation, but I'd rather take the money than be forced out. But that's just me. Behind me here is where the Polk Township High School once sat. There's a good amount of it left, so we'll go and check that out. But there's still quite a few people around who went to high school here, and they meet every few years for reunions and all that. If you ever get on Facebook and search Monument City, there are tons of people who talk about what life was like going to school here and what the town was like. So let's go take a closer look. Right here's the entrance of the school. It's a kind of a weird feeling because obviously it's been abandoned for better part of 50 years, and so many people walked along this sidewalk and up into this entrance and went inside. So it's a bit of an eerie feeling sometimes coming to these places and experience, kind of feeling what life was like at one point before they had to abandon this place. See all the brick here. The school was made of brick, so it makes sense that there would be a ton of brick. Oh wow, look at that. This is part of the floorboards. That's super cool. Even after 50 years, the floorboards are still, there. This kind of tells you how much better the materials were back then than they are today. Gotta be careful here. Oh yeah, there's some more floorboards there. And there's probably not much under there now. They're all dirt and debris. Tell you what though, I bet this is great fishing during the summer. There's tons of cover here for bluegill and probably crappie and all that. I brought along a selfie stick that's 10 feet long to try to get an aerial view of this foundation here. It's a little silly, but if you've been wondering what's in my bag, that's what it is. It's right here. So put it together here. Like I said, it's kind of funny how long it is, but it'll give you a better view of this old school foundation. So we'll see how that looks. All right, we're going to move on to the church, if we can find it, and the old cemetery. I guess the church was just adjacent to the school, so I'm hoping that if I just walk catty corner from the school here, I can find the remnants of the church. And the church is up in there somewhere, a bunch of scrubby brush there. I bet there's some deer hanging out in there. All right, do a little bushwhacking. I think I can see part of it, so that's good. Ouch. A little aggressive. Oh yeah, here it is. All right. Right now we're standing on the concrete pad where the Wesleyan Baptist Church once stood. At least that's what I've found in my research of what it was called. It was a pretty small church. I mean, I'm standing on the pad and it's only, I would say, 30, 40 feet by 20 feet. It wasn't a huge church, but the community wasn't huge either. So, but it's still pretty cool. I'll show you guys, but some of the old tile is still glued down on the floor. Very cool. Here's that tile. See pieces of it. Yeah, that old asbestos tile. It lasts. Talk about that glue too. Again, the things made back then just last a lot longer than they do today. Really, though, it'd be difficult to find this. There's tons of driftwood all over the place. But yeah, you can just barely see the concrete there. I was actually lucky I found it. I was just trying to find a clearing in the trees. So, all right, let's work our way back out, and we're gonna go and try to find the cemetery next. Supposedly, it's just right from the photos. It was just right next to this church. So we'll see if we can find it here. Gotta dig our way back out here. Oh yeah, this is creepy. Someone's shoe. Now that looks like a modern shoe, but I could be wrong. I'm not an expert in Justin boots. Okay, we're working our way out around the old church here to where I think the cemetery once was. It's starting to get, a little dark. I mean, not dark, but we're running out of daylight here. We only got maybe 40 minutes of daylight left, so I'm gonna try to get through this here and find this cemetery, because the last place I want to be at night's a cemetery. So on some of the old photos I've seen, this right here was the brick walkway that led into the cemetery. So let's walk up here. This whole field here would have been the cemetery. So we're going to go in there and check it out and see what we can find. There's a pedestal of a gravestone. Some more debris up in there that might be part of the cemetery. There's another pedestal. The pedestals, they were just a concrete base that held up the headstone. More pedestals. Oh, over there. Those look like actual headstones. Unmarked. Flip them over. Yeah, nothing on them, but they definitely served as a marker at one point. Some more pedestals here. So there's not a whole lot left of this cemetery other than, pedestals and some unmarked stones, which, don't get me wrong, is still kind of eerie and creepy. But up until they flooded this area, they brought in people to dig up the graves and move the graves and the stones to a different spot. And that's on up from where we came in at, which we'll take a look at here in a little bit. An interesting piece of history with that is people who decide to do that job have to agree to quarantine for either the duration of the project or up to a year or something like that, because they have no way of knowing if they dig up some disease that has been dormant for 100 years, and now these guys digging these graves and moving them have contracted that disease, and now they give it to everybody. So that was part of the reason why they make them quarantine for so long. But there's not a whole lot of this cemetery left. Occasionally they do find remains here, and the police usually get involved, and they come out, do an investigation, and then determine, like, yep, it was part of the old graveyard, and they take the bones to the cemetery and give them a proper burial again. But like I said, there's not a whole lot left, just the pedestals and some unmarked stones. Sun's starting to go down, so we're gonna make our way back out to the car, and we're gonna go check out the cemetery where the graves here were taken to and reburied. So check that out, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, we're following the road back out. One thing we will do is when we head out, once we get to the car, we'll stop by the cemetery where all the graves are. So be a good place to stop and check out before we head home. Trailhead's definitely busy here. It was pretty much empty when I first showed up. A lot of people are coming in and hunting now, so go ahead and unload our gear here. We'll head to the cemetery. The cemetery where they took all the graves from Monument City and reburied them up here. There's a lot of graves. I think they moved 231 graves from down there up to here. A lot of these headstones are the originals, but some of them, they weren't able to identify, and so they're just a marker, a stone marker with a number and maybe a name if they're lucky. Here's some of them. Typically they'll do these markers if the headstone's damaged or anything like that. They're able to get a name but not a date. But then you have some like these. They're just a number. So those were found without a headstone, which is the case for a lot of old cemeteries. Headstones are damaged and gone, or the family could never afford one, so they're still buried in the cemetery, but they don't get a stone. And that's part of the reason why later on they kept finding remains after the place was flooded. Supposedly there was even a story that I found where when they first flooded it, coffins were coming up and floating down the river. I don't know how true that is, but still it's a folk story that is interesting nonetheless. So you guys are probably wondering why they named it Monument City. And right after the Civil War, to honor the soldiers that fought in the war, they commissioned a statue, or sorry, a monument, uh, to be erected in Monument City. And that is the monument behind me. The monument moved around in town quite a bit. There's different records showing it was in different places in town, but it's still cool. It was erected in 1869, and I'm thankful that it's still here. Behind me here was the, I guess, the nameplate, if what you would call that, for the high school. And fortunately, they were able to save that as well. But if you want to know why they call it Monument City, it's because of the Civil War monument. All right, and that brings us to the end of our trip through Monument City. What was once a vibrant and tight-knit community is now unfortunately just a distant memory for the people that once lived here. It's hard to believe that out there under that water is the remnants of a town, an old school, general store, a cemetery, a church, and countless foundations from the homes of people that once lived there. If you do come out here, and I highly suggest you guys coming out and checking this place out, please leave things where they are. Let other people in the future get the same enjoyment that I did and you did from discovering this place. If you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, please feel free to leave them. If you have any recommendations for future videos as well, I am all ears. But until then, I will catch you guys on the next video. I appreciate you watching.